Economic Development Corporation regular meeting. We'll begin with item number 1, convene into a public hearing to receive public comments regarding the proposed 2021-2022 Montgomery Economic Development Corporation budget. Richard, before we take comments from the public, would you like to give an overview of said budget?
All right, if you turn to item 4, you'll see, I'm sorry.
Sorry, should I not put you on the spot?
What's that?
I was trying to keep you
I
on.
did get the link, but
Item
it
5,
didn't come
you'll see
in
the budget that is
to mine.
there. The funds are color
I
coded there to make
already
it
looked
easier
at
to go
everything, but I
through.
don't see it on my screen.
This does present a conservative estimate of income. It is an increase
I'll
over what has been
I'll shoot
received
it
in
over
the
to you as soon as I
fiscal
find
year
it.
that's approximately about to end. But it does present what I feel is a conservative estimate, so as to not overextend the MEDC expenditures looking into the year forward. The City Council approved this as part of its overall budget approval at the September 14, 2021 City Council meeting. So this item, as you remember, started in a workshop form here with MEDC. Then the MEDC approved it as a proposed budget. It went to the City of Montgomery City Council to be approved there with their oversight over the MEDC. Now it is back to the MEDC for formal adoption.
Okay. Are there any public comments or did you get an email about today?
I did not get anything in writing prior to the meeting.
Okay.
You want me to send it to
Are
you,
there
or
any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Okay, it is 6:02, and I will close the public hearing and reconvene into the regular meeting and open for the regular meeting.
You found it?
I have not received any written requests for comments. Have you received any written requests for comments for a regular public meeting?
No public comments or requests for public comments were received in writing prior to the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Then item number 3, consider approval of the August 16th budget workshop meeting minutes and August 16th, 2021 regular meeting minutes. Does anyone have any comments on the meeting minutes, either the budget workshop meeting minutes or the regular meeting minutes from August 16th? Both. They were very voluminous, so thank you, Ryan, for making clear for the record what it is that we talked about and all the details related to that.
I felt good on reading them after I missed it.
It's really nice to be able to feel like you were at least part of the meeting, and also it's great for the historical record to go back and know why we made the decisions that we made, so I appreciate that. Hearing no discussion, would anyone like to make a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes. Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the August 16th budget workshop meeting minutes and the August 16th, 2021 regular meeting minutes. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Is there any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of approving the August 16th, 2021 budget workshop meeting minutes and the August 16th, 2021 regular meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will approve the August 16th, 2021 budget meeting, workshop meeting minutes and the August 16th, 2021 regular meeting minutes. Item number 4, financial report through August 31, 2021.
Yes, ma'am. The tax pool rate has not changed in the last couple of months as far as the interest rate. The sales tax transfer was $68,445.94. The 9th payment on the MISD, to the MISD for the land is $63,052.03. And Richard, did I see in the minutes that it was asked when would we make the last payment on that?
Right, and those payments run their term through the calendar year. It's more than likely that those will be paid prior to the end of the fiscal year.
On the next page, we wrote a check to the Reflective Life Ministries for the $20,000 that MEDC had approved several months ago for the extra items that they were providing to the city, and you will update us on that?
I can elaborate just a bit
Please.
there. because that included both, some of that was economic development grant, some of that was for promotional video production. During this last month, since the last MEDC meeting, we did have a check presentation ceremony with the MEDC president and the mayor here at City Hall. We're hoping to do it outdoors, but it was just such a hot day.
Yeah.
That same weekend of the check presentation, several of their actors were in town. Well, they were in town doing filming, but they're also beginning the filming of the video that they're producing for the MEDC to use in promotional purposes, in addition to the other productions that they're doing. And so they still have some work to do on that, but I estimate in the next couple of months we'll be able to see that work and start the process of being able to use it. So thank you for letting me get that.
And unless there's any questions, that was the only items of concern.
Can I just throw one thing out? I noticed that Hootsuite was still being paid for as a subscription. They're no longer in business, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention that you might want to think about another platform.
Well, we still use it, so.
Really?
Yes, I mean, every day.
What is this?
Hootsuite?
It's a scheduling service for.
Hootsuite, yeah. They made an announcement that they were going out of business. It won't be much longer before they're not in business anymore. I just wanted to bring,
Okay,
because we've used them as well.
great.
Just something to think about.
Let's keep our eyes on that and maybe look it up.
Yeah, it's not that much. It's like $300 or $400.
I haven't heard that, so thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah. That's the only thing.
Yeah, so that's much easier to schedule, like, because.
Trust me. I know, they're good. I wish they were going to still be around, but there's others out there.
Did they not get purchased by somebody, or they're just plain going out of business?
I don't know, they just said they're closing down the platform. I don't know if they've been acquired or, I don't know the behind the scenes. I just received notifications a few different times that they were going. So something to consider, but there are lots of other scheduling platforms out there. Just throwing that out.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that email come through to my account, but I'll go back and look for it, and I'll keep an eye out for it.
Yeah, just something,
Maybe where we are, we have a little more time.
probably, yeah.
But then we can be proactive with these options.
Yeah. That's all I
Any
got.
other comments about the budget or the financial report? I'll entertain a motion to approve the financial report.
I move to approve the financial report through August 31st, 2021.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the financial report through August 31st, 2021. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of approving the financial report through August 31st, 2021, say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will approve the financial report through August 31st, 2021. Item number 5, consideration of possible action to approve the fiscal year 2021-2022 annual budget for the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation.
The Montgomery Economic Development Corporation held a budget workshop at 6 p.m. August 16th, 2021 at 101 Old Plantersville Road, Montgomery, Texas, in this very room. The Montgomery Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors approved the proposed budget for fiscal year 2021 to 2022, sent that budget to Montgomery City Council. The Montgomery City Council approved the proposed annual budget for the fiscal year 2021 to 2022 on September 14th, 2021. The public budget hearing was scheduled for 6 p.m. tonight, which was held prior to the consideration of this item. These are the items that are the required steps for the MEDC to be able to approve its annual budget. That budget that was approved at the workshop, not changed by City Council, is presented to you tonight for your consideration. So if there's any questions on those, be happy to try to take those. Otherwise, it's up to the board for a decision on approval.
I make a motion that we approve the 2021-2022 annual budget for the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the fiscal year 2021-2022 annual budget for the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on
August 16th, the MEDC Board of Directors, there was discussion, and that included directors Byron Sanford and Jeff Angelo, communicating with Montgomery Independent School District on opportunities to partner for possible entrepreneurial programs. And so this is the opportunity to have some discussion on that. I know there's a bit of a presentation, I think, that Director Sanford is preparing for here.
Yes, I was, we made contact with Montgomery ISD Career and Technical Education Director Amy Vance. We scheduled a trip to Bryan ISD. The head of that venture happens to be my brother-in-law, so I had a connection. It seemed to work well. Jeff Angelo and myself were invited. Jeff had some things come up and couldn't attend, so it was myself and Amy Vance. And so I just wanted to give you a little bit about their program, just a brief overview. It was a huge venture to begin with. You're talking about millions of dollars, but this particular situation, they were able to find an already existing corporate office for a significantly less amount. And then the ISD at Bryan footed the bill for the internal things that needed to take place. So they saved millions in that regard. And I'm not insinuating that that's what Montgomery has plans on. I'm just saying that sometimes those things can happen in a positive way. They determined student interest. They looked at market trends, and from my understanding from our superintendent and upper management, that's exactly what they've already done, and determined an interest that is very similar to what Bryan has already done, and the way I understand it, Willis has also done as well. I found it interesting that they monitored the businesses that were attaching themselves to this venture to get the kids technically trained. They were lobbying for being paid better wages right out of high school. So they actively were able to influence who would come in, and basically took the approach, we're going to have these kids ready to work for you, and they're going to be well trained, and so we expect them to be paid more. I thought that was kind of interesting. Their particular program included robotics, which I'm going to tell you, as far as the eye could see, they had robotics going on. It was very impressive in that area. And when I say robotics, and you know, we're talking about industrial training, put away your conceptions of grease and things of that nature. Because of the nature of robotics itself, you have to have a very, very, very clean facility, and that place was spotless. And so it's a completely different entity than what we've thought about before. They're training those robots to do everything under the sun, okay? It's a fascinating thing. I was really impressed with that. And they had the auto technology, and I noticed that Bryan City Council and MEDC both contributed to a piece of equipment there that was quite expensive, and I'm not insinuating that's what we should do. Building trades, was big there, and industrial technology was big as well. As far as Montgomery and plans, Jeff and I are part of the Visionary Advisory Board, and we were supposed to have our first meeting last Tuesday, but the weather scare put that away, and so we're still rescheduling. It might be Wednesday. Is that what you're saying?
Tomorrow. I mean, Wednesday, right?
Okay. And so I think there's 34 people involved in that, and so Jeff and I will be representing both the city and being there as a community voice. And this is really ground floor start. There's no solid plans at all. I mean, we're starting from scratch here, but Montgomery ISD has solid support at the top. I can assure you of that, and they haven't heard a lot of pushback. Even with that said, the state mandates, how can I put this? Your bread's going to be buttered a certain way according to state standards, right? And when the state comes in and begins to say your report card is going to start shifting from just that standardized testing expectations that you have and those ratings that everybody kind of somewhat masters these days, now they're going to put it to you and say, we want to see these kids ready to work. And I think that's positive. I think that's tremendously positive. Again, because of the data and what the data says. And we were talking about before the meeting about math and math trends and how painful that can be. And so I had an article prepared, but then Amy gave me one that's better in a pie chart. 80% of high school students that take both CTE and college prep courses, which many times those are synonymous. You're getting college credit and you're also getting tech prep money and CTE money, and it's a higher multiplier for the state, and the state gives you a greater money for that. But 80% of those taking both of those meet college and career readiness goals versus 63% who are college and career ready through college prep courses alone. So a 17% jump in that alone. 600,000 plus high school students enroll in dual credit CTE courses to earn college credit. Career planning, 6 out of 10 students plan to pursue a career related to the CTE area they're exploring in high school. And I thought it was interesting that our superintendent, when I had a personal conversation with him, said exactly that. When they got the data back, 60% of them don't really want the 4-year college track. Duh, makes sense, right? I mean, get your kids ready for what they really want to do. Students enrolled in CTE courses are significantly more likely to develop problem solving, project completion research, communication, time management, and critical thinking skills during high school, which is what the standardized teaching gurus want anyway, right? So it helps your school accomplish what they have to accomplish as far as problem solving and skills like that, while at the same time getting those kids ready to go into the real world. Awesome stuff, right? 36% of STEM, S-T-E-M, that's science, technology, engineering, and math, jobs require post-secondary credentials that CTE students can obtain within 2 years of high school graduation. So I ask you again, it's a national deal, right? I paid my college debts. Everybody needs to pay their college debts. Ain't nobody else going to pay those college debts. You made the choice, you do it. But I'm seeing the trend to say, it makes more sense to get out, and my 20-year-old that was staying at the house, son, spread your wings and fly. I mean, I want you want a 4-year degree, but while you're doing it, get out and work and earn some money, right? We all been there. Graduates with technical or applied science associate degrees can out-earn bachelor's degree holders by 11,000. So these are the facts, right? We're not talking about low level. We're talking about being able to get out there from the start and maybe put some of that money back for your future 4-year degree or whatever management you want to go to. As far as satisfaction, 81% of high school dropouts say relevant real-world learning opportunities like CTE would have kept them in school. So you go to the quote-unquote bottom end of things and stop the dropout. It has that appeal to all different levels of demographics, and that is a worthy thing. Graduates are twice as likely to be engaged at work if they have a meaningful internship or job while in college. So this, I believe, is a market-driven response by our school. As far as what I envision us doing is just simply advise and support. We have business owners that have skill sets, and they hire people who have skill sets. And Mr. Tram has people up here with skill sets. And so when the kids are shown that the city and the adults are willing to invest some of their time and their skill sets, because trust me, as an educator, it is very hard to find personnel. Criminal justice, whatever it is, it's hard to find. Culinary arts, whatever it is, it's hard to find people who can stick. And you've got 2 high schools now, so it's going to be a big venture. They're going to need a solid deal of some kind. And the vision of MISD is at least double that of Bryan. So we're talking about 9 to 10 certain tracks, and it's a phase-in type of thing. Now, the schools already do some of this, but they lose people in the tracks. That's a problem. So this is something where it may be just a handful of kids at first, and I'm already encouraging them to be patient. Sometimes these new ways and these new things, you got counselors that kind of, You know, how do I schedule, and principals the same way, how do I schedule them in? But I think Montgomery is primed and ready for this because the vast majority of those kids are already knocking the top off their standardized tests the sophomore year, the way I'm reading the data.
Yeah.
And so they're primed and ready. But again, it's going to be a chore to get them to track and stay in that track. Now, with that said, how many of us are working exactly where you did your 4-year degree and the nationwide data says that it just ain't happening? Because again, market changes things and people change. But it's about getting them equipped to go into the real world marketplace, be successful, put some money away. We all sat here and talked about it before. Learn how to balance a checkbook, make investments, don't let the government have your money too much. You know, let them have what goes to Caesar, and then the rest of it, you need to learn how to invest it. And so how many of us would have been so much better off with that? So I look on what MISD has, and they have that. They just don't have the vision to really try to encourage people to go these different tracks and think about something different than the standard 4-year deal. And I know if I could have looked back on it, you know, I would have probably taken that deal if it had been there in the 1970s, but it wasn't even there.
Yeah.
Wasn't even a thought, was it? So anyway, I'm encouraged by the attitude. When you've got the support at the top, and all those school boards are really behind it.
Yeah, well, that's a
good
part
story.
of, excuse me, that's a part of the bond initiative that they're going to,
Exactly.
that they're trying to get pushed, the CTE facilities.
Right.
And they're expanding Lake Creek as well, technology. So that's what they're really pushing for. So hopefully we'll see some of that change.
From my own personal experience, I'm a college dropout. Okay, I tell everybody I love college. It was the best week of my life. But I never really made it much past the second semester of the second year. Because I wanted to open a business. I wanted to start a business, and I've never looked back. Since then, I've always owned my own companies. The thing I know for a fact is that when you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. We all know that. If you can find something, a spark, and youngsters have sparks. They have an idea of really where their passions lie and where they see themselves growing into something remarkable. It doesn't mean they have to stay that course, but a lot of times just giving them a chance to even see if it's something they don't want to do is very important. I've had several kids come into my restaurant that are in culinary, and they work a week in the kitchen and go, I'm never going to do this, or they say, well, can I look at something in the front to see if maybe management in the front would be something I'd rather do. So we found that just on-the-job training, before you have to jump into a $150,000, $200,000 college commitment, might be a better path. Not for everybody. If you're a brain surgeon, we want you trained. But from a technical, just from a practical application career, there are a lot of us business owners who are willing to grow people so that they can grow their influence. And I'm excited about this. And like you said, I mean, it's the bond's going to be put out for the voters probably sometime in May, I think I read.
Yeah.
And so we're just going to, Byron, thank you for doing that, by the way. That was huge, just to get a vision of what it could look like. And that's just, they don't even have near the budget that MIDC will have. So it's going to be a remarkable, I believe, asset to our community and to the future growth, for sure.
Byron, just a thought for getting the kids involved. It's always struck me, my kids are young, on the younger side compared to yours, but they have college week and career week, but it's pretty much college week. But not everyone goes to college, and at the elementary level, they're sort of groomed for college or bust.
Sure.
And I think that would be a great time to make the transition of CTE week or something like that, where kids in first grade learn about what their opportunities are and what the school district has to offer, so that when they get to 6th grade, if they even have to wait that long, but, you know, that they already know what's out there for them, you know, and again, it's not this college or, you know, like $2,000, $100,000, you know, anchor around their necks because they think everyone has to go to college, but it turns out that they're not college material for enthusiasm reasons or whatever it turns out to be, that, you know, they're better on another track because of, you know, their own personal desires, as it turns out, but they didn't know because they didn't find out that, you know, that CTE was an option until they made it to high school. You know,
I did make
I think
that-
elementary is the time.
I did make that point that, and they concurred that, mainly Amy, that this is something you build in the junior high. Really, because pretty much the hay's in the barn in a lot of ways by your 10th grade year, one way or another, GPA, everything else is kind of figured right there. With that said, it's interesting, I took 2 mission trips to Acuña, Mexico, and I go down there, that's been years ago, but they said that in their system, they have them declare after the 8th grade. Which we kind of do that, I mean, sort of, but we don't really want to do it. And when I heard it, I thought, well, that's a bad deal. You know, what kid really knows? Well, here's the thing. Now I fast forward to, you better know. You better have a plan, start working the plan, because you get with it, because this is a highly competitive world. And the world is bigger, and and we have a lot of talented kids. And if they have certain abilities, they don't see themselves fitting anywhere. And so, well, my sons and others, you come out and you're not really sure, you know. And I'm thinking, well, while you're not sure, go make some money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You got to go make some money instead of getting into debt.
Right,
And
it's
that's a
not like
major
when I was in
deal.
high school where you either did math or you took the bus over to the VOTEC side and you didn't do anything that would prepare you for college. I mean, it sounds like CTE and advanced math are on the table, so it's not like you're splitting them into mutually exclusive tracks. So
Right.
that's another benefit of looking at
They
it
can
from this direction.
play
Sure.
together then.
Now, the companies that's going to be a part of this program, how would you approach them as far as getting them involved? Is somebody strictly volunteer, or is it some type of incentive?
Some are going to have to be volunteer early. But I mean, you know, you put the need out there and somebody embraces that need and they can come in part-time or whatever it is. Now, I still remember Beaumont Central and the bank showing up there in the lunchroom, started setting up shop. Well, they were starting to try to create a vision for the kids to go to work, do your banking here. What a smile on the face type thing. I look at Port Neches Groves and some others that invited Chick-fil-A. They didn't run a typical deal. They had Chick-fil-A, they had Pizza Hut, they had this, they had that. And so part of the kids' day was actually working in there and learning some things about business and stuff. So I've seen snippets of this integration of school and school to work, and that bill was passed in 1994, where you had to do that. You had to have some clear school to work initiatives, and that was part of your report card. Well, the government is up in the ante and saying, we better get busy or we're going to be left behind. Talk about children left behind, talk about areas left behind. And us as a city, it's hard to find good help these days, right? You talked about it earlier.
Absolutely.
And for different reasons today, but train your own help. And if you train them up, and it takes time, this is a long-range vision, but if you train them up and they can see that they have opportunities to work in our little old city, especially, they're more likely to play here, they're more likely to spend money here.
Build a family.
Yeah, but it's not a quick fix.
Maybe one of the things that the EDC could look at, if the ISD is doing the bulk of the heavy lifting through their tax base, is, we looked at internships before, but that never really looked out, but supplementing internships where, we have specific targets that, it's not enough to work in a restaurant, you have to teach them over and above, so the supplemental pay or percentage of the pay or whatever the dollar per hour thing would be, you have to meet these targets for additional learning opportunities as part of the job. So something like that would be, you're not just a minimum wage employee, this employee also needs to be able to do this by the end of their 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 20 weeks, 60 weeks sort of thing, as set by the school district, what their learning outcomes should be working at this type of facility.
I think, I agree 100%. I think if we can encourage kids to just at least start to explore their career paths and give them a taste of what it might feel like and look like in the real world, I've noticed that there's really two types of people, and entrepreneurs usually have a little bit of both. You've got producers and you've got financial, critical thinkers, that kind of thing. Entrepreneurs typically have to have both of those, but very few people do have the ability, and being able to train them. People aren't necessarily afraid of change; they're just afraid of not being prepared for change. So if we can teach them how that change is going to affect them in a positive way, I mean, yes, you might get a few spankings along the way. I'm talking metaphorically. Don't sue me or whatever. But you may get a few lessons that aren't comfortable. But that's a part of growing, and it's the best part of growing is the journey. Yeah. So helping them find, I mean, we have business owners and people who handle their own, we all handle our own finances, but we have people who own businesses that know that these people, these kids, even, I've got several on my team that have master's degrees that can't get a job in what they studied. I mean, think about it. Master's degrees, how many years of school? You're talking 6, 7, 8 years of school, and will never work in their field because they didn't realize until the very end, that's not really what I wanted to be when I grow up. So I'm excited about this because I believe that that's what we're all about. I mean, we're about developing not just the community, but the people in the community so that they can help develop the community. And so anyway, we're going to a meeting on Wednesday at 4 o'clock with, like Byron said, with a big group of other educators. And we're sort of representing the MEDC in this particular space. And I can't wait till next month because we hopefully will have some great news to share with you.
Are you seeing, I mean, Coach down there, are you seeing in the sector, I see a lot of the kids that, my daughter's second, third year college, but I mean, a lot of kids think mom and dad's money's never going to run out.
You notice that too.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, I guess that would be the biggest lesson right there. Say, hey, this is the end of the road right here.
Yeah, right.
My dad used to call it breaking my plate.
Breaking the plate, yeah.
So I can't eat there anymore.
Well, also taking them and showing them how to put away, how to save for a rainy day. You know, get 6 months of finances, in the bank. Carol probably, I mean, she's a finance guru down here. To be able to understand the importance of putting money away so that rainy day will come, and when you're ready, and when it does come, you're like, I'm good, it's not a big deal. So anyway, I think we're on the right path, and I think our youth is, well, if you look at the impact, the study that just came out, it looks like this MISD is fixing to grow by leaps and bounds. We're talking up to 75% growth just by within the next 5 to 7 years. So it's 600-700 new rooftops. Those all got children and families, and it's going to be a major impact to our city. We might as well start teaching them now.
Yeah.
I think there's a growing trend with people younger than me coming from the millennial generation. Growing up, we were taught college degree is the guaranteed success, and I think that was kind of misleading in a lot of ways, and we bought it. But now we're seeing the people younger than us are saying, okay, maybe that wasn't the guaranteed success. There's other ways to be successful, and there are. And so I think the idea that you have to go to college is starting to wane, and now there's kids who are like, okay, now what can I do? If I don't want to do college, it's not for me, what other opportunities are there? And there's plenty of opportunities out there. They just need to know and be pointed in the right direction. And I think something like this would really help with that. A good example is I went to college, my brother went to college, but my younger brother, he's 7 years older than me. He was like, no, this is not for me. He went, he does restoration, and he's just as successful as me and my brother. He has college degrees. And he didn't know, he had to do some finding and had to take some help from other people to help him give him in the right direction. But I think there's a lot of people like that who don't want to spend 4 years, 7 years in college or whatever, when there's plenty of other opportunities to be successful. So I think it's a great program. I know there's a growing trend, which I don't know what this means, but there's a growing trend of males pulling out of the education system, and there's going to be a predominantly female educated, workforce, and how do you handle that imbalance? I don't know what that means, but something to consider, that there's a lot of men who need these trade schools and stuff like
Yes.
that, and they're probably very talented and can be successful in those trade schools. So,
Totally
so
agree.
yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I think it'd be great for our economy. I think it's something that UMDC should really support and get behind as much as we
Bringing it back to
can.
Ryan
Teach
said,
them
our
how to use
economy
these.
supports
That's
it
right.
too. If people feel that there's hope for them working and having their own businesses, our economy will benefit because, they'll make businesses here and use their skills here, and it will help the city grow with quality, people who have skills, people who have earning potential, and they'll live here, work here, spend here.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a win-win to definitely support it and, hope to help nurture it.
Yeah.
Agreed. We'll get back to you after we have a chance to.
Richard, can we have this on the agenda for months to come until they tell us to stop putting out the
Carry it as long as we need to.
Okay.
And no action is necessary, just to carry it as well.
Okay, great.
I'd like to have somebody from the school district.
All right, does anyone else have any questions or comments on this? Or shall we move on to item number 7? City Administrator's Development Report, City Engineer Report. Richard?
All right, thank you. I'm sure a lot of you've noticed, what goes on in the city. It's been going on for a while. We have a lot of commercial development going on the east side of the city. Panda Express has been moving forward quite quickly. Wendy's is broken ground. There's several new areas just starting to break ground. There's one area I've been asked a couple of times, next to the church down 105 near McCoy's. They've actually, just disturbed their ground to start working on an athletic field. So it's not a new shop of some sort coming in right adjacent to them. But because we have so much activity, any little change draws a lot of people's opinion. Our residential development is occurring in multiple parts of the city. We have the estates at Town Creek Crossing that is getting close to where they're going to be applying for building permits for their homes. That'll add a projected 199 homes on their plans. The Hills of Town Creek Crossing is beginning another section that will add another 30. Those two alone, that's 229 new home sites in the next couple of years. We have talks here at the city with another development that may add up to 500 homes. I would project, we're talking for all of that, a 5 to 6 year timeline. But, those come close all together to doubling the number of homes that are in the city. And that's not even counting just the lots throughout the city that may build or another developer approaching the city. So we are on that kind of a growth curve. The city, the last 4 to 5 years, doubled in population. The 4 to 5 years before that, doubled in population. We're on track continuing that. That kind of growth is difficult to maintain, but we're in a position that we just may do it at least for the next 4 to 5 years. There's a number of kind of merging the engineering into my report. Some of the construction projects for several months since January. The water line project that was largely on 105 down Palm Street and then over on 149. That is connecting larger water lines on the east and west side of the city. It's designed to make sure we have additional volume and address potential pressure concerns on the west side of the city. That will continue to mount as population continues to move out there. So it's interconnecting larger lines to in the middle of those, where some of the city's oldest lines were, and thus some of the smaller lines.
So Richard, just a quick question. What specifically, typically same amount of water, smaller pipe, better pressure. Is that all that considers? Is it just the different size of pipe? Is there something else working besides the size of pipes?
Well, have you ever put your thumb on the end of a garden hose?
Yeah, that's...
Okay, what you've done there is you have 3/4 inch hose, and so you put your thumb on the end of it, you greatly reduce the volume coming through.
Yeah.
What you temporarily do there is increase the pressure, which is why it's very sparkling. But, so if you take that the other direction and what you you're starting with is a thin spray, and then you have a 3/4 inch hose. What you've done is, because there's nothing connected and there's a loose end there, you dropped your pressure. Imagine that being all these homes trying to draw more water than that line can deliver. That is how your pressure drops. So what we had through the center of town was a mixture of lines that were no larger than, the maintenance made, but it was really 6 inch at the time that was built. We're ultimately connecting 12-inch lines from end of the city. 12-inch line doesn't have twice the water of a 6-inch line. That's proportional as you grow out, so it's several times the volume there. And so you're bringing that volume, but you're maintaining the pressure within the water line, so it can be delivered in a sufficient volume to maintain that pressure to all those homes that are out there.
And then
so it's a mixture of volume and ability to maintain pressure.
But you throw in some very real topography types of concerns with the rolling hills that go this way and then they go that way, and that is part of our consideration. So projecting forward, above ground water sources in the future, is that by mandate? Isn't that by mandate when your city gets a certain size that you have to have an above ground water source?
Not necessarily. There's more than one way to maintain that type of pressure. I think the easiest, in my opinion, the best way to do that, you have a lot of advantages through an elevated source. Once you expend the energy to move that water up into the elevated tank, it's applying the pressure through force of gravity pulling down out throughout your system. You could go out there, if you had 500,000 gallons of water in an elevated tank up in the air, you could pull power of the city and that water is still under pressure until you drain that tank. And I've managed water systems before that could ride out a hurricane by disconnecting the electricity at their facilities because they had enough water in an elevated tank. They reduced the risk of taking the electric shock through the line for lightning strikes by disconnecting some of those facilities because they had all of that water in elevated tanks. You can maintain the pressure as we do at our current water plants through a combination of pressure pumps and pressurized tanks that are at ground level. That requires continuous power in order to properly maintain. So there's a balance there, and you can have both types in one city. Personally, I think the city's best option is like the elevated tank in the long run. And I think, and that'll be the subject of some discussion that we have this fall. The City Council has heard several times this summer. They'll be doing a new round of capital improvement planning, this fall and winter, and that's necessary to update our impact fee schedules.
Is the city on one pressure plane
It is at the moment.
at the moment?
And
So you have two pressure planes, need two different types of pressure vessels.
And I think probably will continue to be on that.
Until we grow out, we might have to.
Right, we were running the risk, and I think perhaps of some extremes on demand, you would see, what's really one pressure plane, but because you had limits in the ability to move water, it acted almost like a secondary pressure plane because pressure would drain off on the further ends on the western side a little bit quicker.
That's a little bit pressure plane.
So are you running pressure pumps with a generator on a natural gas source? Or?
So right now we have generators with diesel source. It gets into long-term plans that are ideas and concepts sometimes, and not entirely ready to put into play. But I'm a big believer in having natural gas generators, as is our public works director, when you can. The city's history, that wasn't necessarily always possible here. It is now much more likely to be possible for the future. One of the great things about natural gas generators is you can hook it up to a hard natural gas line instead of having to maintain diesel tanks that also have protective reservoirs around them, and you have to worry about getting the diesel fuel delivered.
Natural gas can come from 100 miles away as long as their pressure pumps are up.
Right, and I think there's also a big advantage in the city in the future adding natural gas generators. While we maintain through its lifespans our diesel generators, then you've diversified your fuel source. It's possible that one or another fuel source could be in jeopardy for some reason. If both fuel sources end up in jeopardy, we've probably got bigger problems.
That's for sure.
I think it may have diverged a bit from the questioning.
And the scope of the MEDC as well.
almost forgetting where I am.
Yeah, I'm going on water.
I think you get me start talking about water. Go off my direction. But where I was is, the downtown water line, it's nearing completion. They're trying in the evenings to make the switchovers onto the new line. The old line will be abandoned. Water plant number 3, they've begun the work that's occurring over there. That this fall will also culminate with replacing a 100,000 gallon, I think 110,000 gallon storage tank with a 220,000 gallon storage tank. So that will double the supply of one of the 2 tanks there.
Can that tank be taken down and moved somewhere else, the old
No.
tank?
It's not. I had the opportunity to walk through that tank this past winter. The best condition it is in is just to be replaced and scrapped. It's the best I can say about that.
Steel prices are up.
It was subject of some hostile discussion.
The lift station number 1 project in the same Water Development Board funding, that has been completed. That's where Chick-fil-A is now, and that lift station was moved. And that was some of the early work. Lift station number 3, sanitary, the force main reroute, that is on hold for future funding. On transportation mobility topics, the FM 149 turn lane, that project is moving forward. Not as quickly as some might like, but it's been years in the making. I'm not sure exactly how old that project is going to work. I just know it was before I was here that it was starting, and I've been here 2.5 years, and I still haven't done the project, but at least they're starting work. In TxDOT 2021 Transportation Alternative Projects, the city has 2 applications for sidewalks in there. That's a 4-to-1 match, or an 80-20 match there, and the city would have to pay 100% of the cost and then be reimbursed 80% if it's selected for those projects. The city had budgeted for 100% of the work in the current year budget that they approved on the 14th. And it will be October before they find out whether or not those grants are awarded. It is applied in 2 different grants, so either the city could get 0 projects, 1 project, or 2 projects approved there. So we're hopeful we'll get 2 on that one. And then TxDOT also has the State Highway 105 Access Management Project that ranges from basically 2054 Montgomery all the way to I-45 in Conroe, where they will be putting up directive lanes for turning in the center lane there to help improve traffic safety. And the city's also done in Montgomery studies for speed on 1097 as well as traffic signal study. So there's a number of things en route between the city and TxDOT going on these days. Later tonight, as we end the meeting, I'm going to give each of the directors the draft report from Gunda on the downtown improvement plan. And the idea here is you take it home, look through it during the month, send us or write down your questions for a presentation next month. If you got constructive comments, by all means, send them to myself and or David Corkadell, who's as the director of planning and development, has been leading the coordination with Gunda here. And so,
Can you send us a PDF?
I'm sorry?
Can you send us a PDF of the report?
I'm sure Dave can, especially if he likes you.
Oh, no, be that.
I'll give you a
I asked him all the questions.
I'm sure that can be arranged. We printed them on site here to save money as opposed to having the engineers print it for us. Not meant to be a swipe at all engineers. But we did that here, so I'm quite certain he's got the PDF that could send you. And I do understand sometimes it can be easier to kind of move through it that way.
Yeah,
And so I'm just going to kind of skip through that portion of my written report here, and I'll be giving you the larger version of that, and there will be a formal presentation of that at next month's meeting. So that way you'll have time to look through the draft, and then and come to that meeting prepared to discuss the matter. In the engineer's report, I touched on a number of the items on construction, in my report earlier, and there's details on a number of smaller items in there. On the bottom of the second page of the report, it refers to notations with Grace Point Homes on the Camera tract. That's the tract of land where we've been approached with possible development up to 450 to 500 homes. Those are just in the early discussion phase at this point, but it does seem to me, from what I've heard related to some of the consultants involved, that is of an increasing likelihood to move forward. And that will be essentially on the southwest part of the city, south of 105, essentially tucked behind the high school. So, if you have any questions on those, we have to try to take them, or?
That number seemed to fluctuate, because the last I heard, it's over 500.
It can. It looks like the amount of land that I see being discussed right now is a little smaller than what was originally talked about. It's really one really large parcel and a couple of smaller pieces that have fluctuated in and out of discussion. But by the next time it gets referred to, that may change again.
It fluctuates a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, the mitigation land is going to make the difference on how many houses you get in there, so.
Yeah, and the family there is, from the last map I saw, they're going to be maintaining a portion of the property under their own ownership. And as you said, there is significant drainage there, and that affects the amount of buildable land. They still, looks like they intend to build larger lot line homes. And so with that, you have a little more flexibility in terms of what you can build and how you maneuver the drainage that goes through those. But there's still a lot of things that gotta be.
Their current land plan doesn't have drainage mitigation?
I'm
in it?
sorry?
Does their current land plan have drainage mitigation in it? Like reservations for detention ponds? That would drastically reduce the amount of lots that you can build.
Well, right now that area is large open land, so they're buying this as a large chunk. I believe they've taken that into account, but I don't have that information.
Usually they're undersized, but
Or you just turn it into a detention, retention, instead of just waterfront lots. Get your money back.
That's a problem they're gonna have to solve before they really get into that.
On the other end of town, what is the city, do they have plans, or are they pursuing this additional 2854 route out to Lake Creek? I mean, that area is getting ready to explode. I've noticed there's a lot of commercial properties that have come on the market.
Really, they're getting into an area that is, once you make that turn down 2054, you left the city.
Right.
And you're entering Conroe's ETJ. So it's not going to become.
So they're going to grab it, basically.
Right.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, there's a lot of buildable property out that way.
there's a lot of development going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Designed, platted, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not going to be the sleepy area that it had been for a long, long time.
Let's just take it away from them.
All you have to do is write a check and buy the land.
We're years past all that, making it affordable.
Richard, just out of curiosity, is it possible for us to get some information on the development going on there? Is it open for us to?
Going on where?
Well, go 2854 because that's going to impact our community, and I'm just wondering if, if we know about things that are happening there, maybe we can. I know it's not directly in the city, but certainly going to be close enough.
The only information we're really able to get is what's available to the general public.
Gotcha.
If the developer is having closed-door talks with the city of Conroe,
You wouldn't know.
those are closed-door talks that we're not going to, because they're if they're having those preliminary meetings and they're not choosing to make it public, they're not going to make it public.
Understood.
Hey, Richard, I know Jones and Carter is working on a design for the drainage for Anders Branch drain. Will they be working on some for concrete as well? Both of those
Are you
projects?
talking about concreting the ditch space there?
Yeah.
No, that's not allowed under the current grant, under that grant program.
Oh, really?
Exactly. There are, they can't dig down and deep in the ditch.
You can't dredge it?
They can't, well, it can be, say, cleared, I guess, but it can't be deepened, can't be widened.
Really?
Can't, right.
Well, that's why all your flood right there in.
Well, they'll be able to address trees and brush, but not dirt.
How about culvert sizes? Do you have any access? I mean, a lot of times in history, people just go in and put a culvert in, and next thing you know, you've got some blockage.
Well, for what we're talking about here, we're talking about the drainage way that is, I guess, behind the homes. So
Well,
behind the houses on one side.
it come behind, the concrete starts behind Lincoln High School, used to be the old nature trail, and it comes under MLK, it goes through another property, then it comes back behind the home, so, I don't know, it just, it's,
Well, for this project, there's a fairly limited amount of space that they're allowed to do work. What you're really talking about is there's going to have to be, after this is done, it's really going to have to be a multi-pronged project that has to layer upon each other. And you've got like this phase of work, and there's going to have to be a continuation in the future to affect multiple directions. But since the money where the city is getting for this is coming from the GLO, we're limited by what the GLO says we're allowed to do.
so much, just a certain amount can be allocated toward each project? Who makes that decision?
That was already, that decision was made several years ago, and it was before I was working here.
So it's grandfathered in, huh?
I don't want to say grandfathered in so much as that was already determined. Since it was before my employment, I don't know how much of that decision was made by the GLO and how much was made by the city.
But couldn't you go back and reassess the situation now versus was then and make a different decision based on the conditions now?
In theory, yes. However, in order to do that, we would have to take that process through the GLO, and there's simply not enough time to get the money spent by the deadline, and then you risk all that money being pulled and then no work being done.
Right.
GLO doesn't like changes either, so
Yeah.
they'll delay it significantly.
Sometimes we have trouble getting them to understand what they've already decided. Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Something's
right.
Yeah.
Is there a,
I'm sorry to portray it as a strict bureaucracy.
I understand.
GLO, it is a strict bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
is there a, is Shipley's considering moving over to McCowan Street? Is that what I'm seeing?
Strictly is going to.
So do you any idea what they're gonna do with that check?
I think the termites are going to turn to dust before. We don't know what's going to happen with the current location.
But Richard, that $2.2 million that the grant, they said Town Creek was a part of that study. So what part of Town Creek is a part of that $2.2 million?
I don't have all the information in front of me, and I haven't looked at it in a couple of weeks, and I don't want to give you an answer
Sure.
to that I'm not 100% sure of while we're in an open meeting. So I'll take a look at that and follow back up.
Okay, thank you.
So on the turn lane, I guess what you're talking about right there, so the Exxon is agreed to give up some of their,
No, we're talking 149 northbound turning east. So the southeast corner, where you see the work going on.
Okay.
We've made several approaches with regards to the Exxon and different options there. Part of the big problem comes into being where their trash dumpster is located and how their building is.
Yeah.
They were at one point going to tear down that building and rebuild, and we're trying to work with them on that opportunity to relocate items. We tried reaching out to the ownership of the land where the Shipley's currently is, about dumpster opportunities there, so we can get that building line, or get the road line moved in past where the dumpster currently is. Everything we've tried always runs into a roadblock somewhere, so I'm hoping with maybe that land being vacated, opens up another door for another
So
discussion.
that's leased, Shipley's is leasing that property?
That's my understanding. We've talked to the ownership, but it isn't the ownership of the Shipley's.
That'd be nice. Turn lane going westbound would be nice.
yes.
There's always the Lundin Engineering Office there too. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
With everyone's permission, then we'll move on to item number 9. Everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, presentation on the city comptroller's role in local government development and investment programs. Since Richard's busy, I'll introduce this one, if that's all right, Richard?
Thank you.
So this is one of the presentations for the online EDC training, and it has to do with other ways that projects can be funded. I thought we'll make it. And for those of you who haven't signed up for any classes, the online one is a pretty easy one to get through. They give you the presentations, they give you the videos, and you can go through them at your leisure. I think 2 of you are scheduled for in-person, maybe 3 of you are scheduled for in-person ones where you go through it all in 1 or 2 days.
I think they nixed that though, didn't
So
they?
did they?
Yep.
Did they?
It's all,
Well, they're probably moving, as the days move on, they've been converting some of the on-site into remote, but they haven't done that to all of them yet.
Okay.
And just one thing right before I start to play this, not all of it is 100% applicable to our situation, but there's a lot of good information in here. And I'm sure most of you remember this, but just say it, make sure, in case it gets anyone off guard, where they talk about type A and type B economic development corporations, we are type B, which means we have all the authority of type A plus what's applied to type B. So.
Thank you for your interest in local economic development incentive programs and the state controller's role in helping community leaders and economic developers to grow their local economies. I'm Russell Gallahan, the Senior Economic Development Analyst at the Texas State Controller's Office. Some communities view their Economic Development Corporation and its local sales tax funds as a money tree. It's shaken each time community leaders run short on general revenue or come up with a pet project that would be better financed from the general fund, a local charitable organization, or an alternative economic development incentive program. A key function of an economic development organization official is to redirect these funding requests away from the EDC to conserve these scarce resources for important projects that will grow the city and expand the local tax base. For that reason, it's vital to familiarize yourself with other local incentive programs that might be better fit for a given project. This presentation will discuss these alternative funding sources. The Controller's Office has 3 primary roles: technical assistance to communities on how the programs work through publications, seminars, webinars, and direct assistance by telephone and email. Also, we advise local officials on how the programs might be used to achieve a community's specific economic development goals and objectives. And finally, for certain programs, we provide oversight, reporting, and approval. However, most of these programs are locally administered and involve no state funds. Instead, they're funded from existing local resources or require collaboration with other local government entities. These incentive programs fall into 3 broad categories: property tax incentives, sales tax incentives, and Chapter 380 and 381 agreements. Property tax incentives include property tax abatement, tax increment financing, the appraised value limitation, better known as Chapter 313, and the Freeport goods in transit exemption. We'll examine each of these programs. The property tax abatement was one of the first tax incentives. In fact, one of the earliest examples occurred in the 11th century, when Lady Godiva rode on a white horse through the streets of Coventry, England, clad only in her hair, to protest the tax assessment on her husband's property. Needless to say, they received the abatement. A property tax abatement is an agreement between the taxpayer and the taxing unit, such as a county or city, or even a special purpose district, to forgive taxes on all or part of the increase in value of land and buildings, known as real property, and sometimes tangible personal property, which might, for example, include the equipment and machinery that's installed inside of a factory. An abatement agreement may last for up to 10 years. However, it's not uncommon for abatements to last shorter periods of time. Likewise, it's common to phase in these agreements, offering larger percentages of abatement in the early years and lesser amounts of abatements in later years. But it's also common to offer full abatements during the entire 10-year period. State law requires creation of a reinvestment zone prior to offering an abatement. This multi-step process often takes up to 6 months, so it's important for local governments to establish an abatement program and to designate reinvestment zones in advance and in accordance with their comprehensive plans. Some communities are reluctant to offer property tax abatements. Tax increment financing, or TIF, gives local governments an alternative. Rather than abating the taxes, the local government entities agreed to dedicate all or a portion of the incremental increase in property tax receipts that result from an increase in property value to pay for infrastructure improvements within the zone for a designated period of time. The idea is to spur growth or rehabilitation of a specific area known as the tax increment reinvestment zone, or TIERS, by either borrowing money or cash flowing the cost of improvements such as streets, sidewalks, lighting, drainage, water, sewer, or other capital infrastructure. A city may choose to dedicate a portion of the sales tax generated in the zone to the TIF fund as well. These improvements themselves will increase the value of the adjacent property, but also would likely encourage local property owners to improve the conditions of their properties. For example, new sidewalks and lighting might encourage a property owner to make facade improvements, paint their buildings, improve signage, and perhaps stay open later in the evening. The reverse broken window effect. This also would likely increase local sales tax receipts as well. When all the public improvements are complete and the debt is paid, the TIF would be dissolved, with all subsequent tax revenue accruing to the participating local government entities. Simplified, if the community did nothing, they would continue to receive property taxes from the base ad valorem in the blue box. If the entity implements a TIF, the funds generated by increases in property values resulting from the capital improvements will be deposited into the TIF fund, the red triangle. When all improvements are complete and the TIF is dissolved, all remaining and future funds from the former TIF zone accrue to the general fund of the governmental entities who formerly participated in the TIF. As required by the legislature, each even-numbered year, the Controller's Office provides annual reports on each of these programs, including property tax abatements, reinvestment zones, and tax increment financing. More information on these programs is available on the Controller's website at comptroller.texas.gov. The appraised value limitation program was created by the legislature to attract large-scale capital investment and new high-paying jobs to school districts with below-average ad valorem tax bases. Eligible projects are limited to certain industries, including manufacturing, renewable electrical generation, research and development, nuclear electric power generation, and advanced clean energy. Although many early projects were in manufacturing, more than half of recent agreements have been in the renewable energy sector, overwhelmingly in wind power generation. Currently, the state has active agreements in only the three highlighted industries: manufacturing, renewable electric energy generation, and research and development. So how do appraised value limitations work? An appraised value limitation is an agreement between a taxpayer and a school district. The business agrees to build or install property and to create a specific number of jobs in return for a 10-year limitation on the taxable property value for school district maintenance and operation tax purposes. Applications are made directly to the school district along with the required application fee. The fees may run into the thousands of dollars to help offset the school district's cost to evaluate the application. Indirectly, the fee also serves as a deterrent to frivolous applications. Applications and agreements must be evaluated and approved by the controller. The analysis gauges the likelihood the applicant will be able to meet the terms of the agreement and determines the impact of the agreement on the state share of school funding, since the state makes the school districts whole on nearly all of the lost tax revenue resulting from the agreement through the Robin Hood school funding mechanism. As with abatements and other property tax incentives, the property subject to a value limitation must be located within a reinvestment zone. The applicant must agree to a minimum amount of investment, usually be made within the first 2 years of the agreement. The applicant must create at least 25 new jobs unless a jobs waiver is approved by the district. Job waivers are common in most Chapter 313 agreements. As mentioned earlier, wind power makes up the vast majority of projects. Most employment increases are temporary, primarily during the construction phase. Once the projects are operational, only a few maintenance jobs remain, performed by technicians traveling between many wind turbines scattered over hundreds of square miles. Finally, the most important requirement for an appraised value limitation agreement is the applicant must demonstrate evidence of considering to locate the project in another state or outside the United States. This evidence might include site visits or correspondences with property owners or communities located outside of Texas. This map shows the minimum amount of investment required to qualify for a value limitation. The required minimum investment amounts range from $1 million in the school districts colored in dark green to more than $100 million in those districts colored in dark red. The Chapter 313 Appraised Value Limitation Program was not reauthorized by the legislature. Unless action is taken in a special called session, the program will expire on December 31st, 2022. Proposed agreements not approved by the controller and executed by the school district by that date will not be implemented. As required by the legislature, by the end of each even numbered year, the Controller's Office provides a biennial report on the appraised value limitation agreements in the Texas Economic Development Act report. This report is available on the Controller's website at comptroller.texas.gov. In general, most business personal property is subject to ad valorem or property taxes in Texas. This includes goods that are stored in warehouses temporarily and later moved to customers in other locations. To increase employment and capital investment in the warehousing industry, the state authorized local governments at their discretion to exempt from taxation most free-port goods coming from another state or goods in transit moving from one community to another within the state, as long as the property will be re-exported from the jurisdiction in less than 175 days. Certain properties, such as aircraft parts, are given up to 730 days to be re-exported without being subject to property tax. To authorize this incentive, a local government entity would need to adopt an order or ordinance by majority vote of its governing body and file notice with the Controller's Office. We will now turn to sales tax incentives. Sales tax incentives include hotel occupancy tax, the Type A and B sales tax for economic development, and the municipal development district. An important and often overlooked part of the community's economic development strategy is tourism. Tourism is the second largest export industry in the state after oil and gas. Texas has more than 500,000 hotel rooms. Total hotel room sales in 2019 exceeded $10.5 billion, of which $9.1 billion was taxable. Annual revenue from hotel occupancy taxes generates more than $650 million from tourism in Texas communities. Tourism has an annual economic impact, including direct, indirect, and induced expenditures of more than $169 billion. So what can the community do to promote tourism? The state authorizes all cities to impose a hotel occupancy tax of 7% of the cost of renting a room. Many cities that also have a convention center may collect up to 9%. But that's only half the job. There are cities throughout the state that collect the tax but spend very little of the funds. To grow the tourism industry, the funds must be spent to improve tourism infrastructure on things like advertising, meeting facilities, visitor centers, art and music festivals, and sporting events to attract visitors. The Governor's Office of Economic Development and Tourism offers a number of cooperative advertising and promotional programs. For more information on these opportunities, please see Travel Texas pages on the Governor's Office website at gov.texas.gov. For more information on adopting a hotel occupancy tax or other technical assistance, contact the Controller's Office Local Government Assistance Team. To set the stage for a comparison between the Type A and Type B sales tax for economic development and the municipal development district, let's do a brief overview of each program. The Type A and B sales tax for economic development is an additional sales tax cities can impose after a successful election. To date, Texas has 726 economic development corporations, or EDCs, of which 211 are Type A corporations and 515 are Type B corporations. This is down from a total of 728 EDCs in 2017. Some of this decline is attributed to the competition from other local sales tax options, including the Municipal Development District, or MDD, that we'll cover in a moment. Together, EDCs generate more than $2.2 billion in sales tax each biennium. Most are located in cities with populations under 5,000. Type A corporations focus on developing industries through incentives to manufacturing, research and development, building infrastructure such as transportation, water and sewer, in funding services such as job training classes. Similar to Type A, Type B corporations may fund programs that develop industries, but also projects and services that cultivate a better quality of life for residents, such as parks, open space improvements, museums, sports facilities, and affordable housing. If the Type B corporation is located in a city with a population under 20,000, it also may fund direct incentives to promote retail development. In addition, both Type A and B may fund advertising and promotion, not to exceed 10% of annual revenues. Originally, the legislature created the Municipal Development District, or MDD, to allow cities with territory in multiple counties with varying combined local sales tax rates to create sales tax-supported economic development organizations. This was later expanded to allow any city to adopt an MDD. Unlike EDCs, the city, with voter approval, may adopt an MDD in all or only part of the city, with availability in the 2% local sales tax cap. In addition, the city may adopt more than one MDD and include the territory located in the city's extraterritorial jurisdiction. The MDD is governed by a board of directors of at least 4 members appointed by the City Council to serve for a 2-year term. Like Type A and B, MDDs may fund a variety of projects related to promoting manufacturing and industrial production. They may fund any Type A project, plus projects related to improving quality of life of the community, such as parks and open space improvements. They may fund job training, budget infrastructure, and promotion. However, unlike Type B corporations, MDDs are not subject to public hearing or petition requirements. This allows an MDD to move more quickly on projects, but the lack of transparency may be of concern in some communities. There is no state reporting requirement for MDDs. Here's a comparison of the Type A corporation, the Type B corporation, and the MDD. Note the absence of transparency requirements for MDDs at the bottom of the table. In 2020, the Comptroller's Office implemented a number of changes to EDC reporting. This included automated email notices, a change in the due date from February 1st to April 1st, and a new data visualization tool. The data is compiled and reported to the legislature before the end of each even-numbered year. Failure to submit the report may result in exclusion from the Comptroller's biennial Economic Development Corporation report and assessment of a financial penalty of $200. This is an example of an actual report. The first section of the report asks for administrative information, such as the corporation name, contact person, and email address. The second section asks for primary economic objectives, such as job creation. The third section asks for financial information. The fourth asks for assets of the corporation, such as land and buildings. And finally, the report asks for the contact information for the person submitting the form. The most important change to the reporting process is how we present the data. Previously, you could only view report submissions on our website by corporation, one at a time, in a format similar to the submission form we just viewed on the previous slide. To improve transparency, the Comptroller's Office introduced a new data visualization tool. This gives the user the ability to view individual corporation data or to create comparison reports for any group of or all EDCs. It may be accessed at comptroller.texas.gov. For example, by selecting fiscal years 2019 and 2020, the cities of Abilene and Amarillo, Type A, and revenue details, the report shows a revenue summary for the 2 corporations for the 2 fiscal years. The data also can display in graphic form by selecting the chart tabs on the left of the screen. Here's the revenue visualization in raw dollars. Here's the graphic of the revenue data as a percentage of total revenue. This might be more useful when comparing EDCs with vastly different amounts of revenue. Visualizations are also available for expenditure data, fund balances, and even a directory for all EDCs in Texas. Data or graphs may be printed or downloaded by a right click of the mouse. Our final topic is economic development by contract, better known as Chapter 380 and 381 agreements. For more than 30 years, Texas cities and counties have been authorized to negotiate and implement economic development incentive agreements by contract, known as Chapter 380 agreements for cities and Chapter 381 agreements for counties. They allow the local government's flexibility to tailor the incentive to the specific needs of the business and for the city or county to set specific terms to the benefit of the community. They can include bonuses for the business when they exceed the terms of the contract, or specify clawbacks of past incentives or reductions in future incentives when the business fails to meet its obligations. The statute does not specify terms or duration for these agreements. Instead, it's left to the creativity of the community and the business to set the terms that are mutually beneficial. The most common type of agreement is a sales tax sharing agreement. Others might require the city or county to build infrastructure, such as streets or utilities, in return for the business located to the community. New in 2021 is the requirement for cities and counties to report all Chapter 380 and 381 agreements to the controller. Reporting will be simple and completely electronic. Filers will be provided login information by email. Submission will be consistent of a completed one-page web form and providing a PDF attachment of the agreement document. The statute offers a civil penalty of $1,000 for non-compliance. Here's a tentative implementation timeline for the Chapter 380 and 381 agreement register. The controller will not accept paper documents, so please hold any submissions until you receive instructions from the controller in late October 2021. Around November 1st of 2021, the controller's office will open filing for reports of all active agreements. This will be due by January 1st of 2022. On a continuing basis, cities or counties, either entering into, amending, or renewing an agreement, must report the action to the registry within 14 days of execution. For more information, please contact the controller's local government assistance team. This concludes our presentation on local economic development incentive programs and the state controller's role in helping community leaders and economic developers to grow their local economies. For more information on these economic development incentives and other programs, please contact the controller's local government assistance team at 844-519-5672. Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
Pretty cool.
Short and sweet.
All right. Well then, put on my glasses and we'll move on to item number 10 with your permission. The executive session. MEDC Board of Directors reserves the right to discuss any of the items listed specifically under this heading or for items listed above in executive closed session as permitted by law, including if they meet the qualifications in section 551.071, consultation with attorney, 551.072, deliberation regarding real property, 551.073, deliberation regarding gifts, 551.074, personnel matters, 551.076, deliberation regarding security devices, and 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations of Chapter 551 of the Government Code of the State of Texas. Item number 10, adjourn to close executive session as authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551 of the Government Code, in accordance with the authority contained in the following. A, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, and 551.072, deliberation regarding real property. It is 7:24, and we will convene into executive session. Let's walk into the conference room, please.
Leave everything here.
You can if you want to, you don't have to if you don't want to. Actually, never my computer, I guess. You never know what you know, under that.
Do you have one of those forms that they use in executive session?
No, because I only thought of that now because I haven't had an executive session for a year. So,
All right.
and I figured between the two of you, someone was going to do that.
basically, the concepts, the ideas, how this property Buddha or the downtown developments, and we see that corner in various representations, whether feature or just outside of other features. We could go to the plans for the various discussions, as well as we will see this area has been looked at as entry, gateway, and a variety of ways. For that area of the city of Montgomery. It sells or leases for businesses, obviously, that's one of the features that this is something that is desirable. That's why we're going to talk about that. Is there the desire, is there the will, is there the need for the city to look at finding other ways to acquire the property? pedestrian freeway out of the car to assist with the roadway. All of these various things do fall within the mandate of what some of the question may be, my first question was, is that something this board is even interested in cleaning, which certainly seems to yes, because I don't have to really just kind of go and have all these discussions, which can't occur until I actually put the work out, and without knowing, that somebody on the other end, the EDC board is interested in that discussion being had. at your visual entrance as people drive in, whether from east, west, or south. That's your visual gateway. That's the whole reason that this discussion is working out there, that, oh, we're looking at this property, there's a rumor, and like at this point, when you do this rumor, it's really just conceptual, it's not farther than that. Now that I know there's a desire for this group, and an opportunity, and have a clear, firm, and it kind of leaves. Hopefully we'll receive, go start that conversation on why just need the numbers to know that number. Already said, okay, that was conversation. So we get this, they can start talking. there's nothing inherently confidential in this information. It's all about what we're doing. This is all public information. But the conversation we have is pretty much confidential. Sharing that breaks the confidentiality.
Get over it.
And for those of you who have not been in the session before, it is also sharing by not that I want to trust you.
Yeah. Oh, big enough trash. I'm good at that.
Yes, I'll tell you how that might apply.
No. I don't want to be the last. Yeah, I get in trouble all the time. Okay. All right.
You stayed, Miss Amy.
Pretty much wraps it
I
up.
said you stayed.
Were you there on Sunday? Did you, what did you, baptism?
First saw us, I thought he did.
Oh, I know.
Misty and I, we watched church online Sunday because I haven't had the day off. 21 days. Oh, really?
All right.
Decided I needed just
I am calling us back into session at 7:56. Do we have any action from executive session?
I make a motion to authorize the city administrator to discuss real property.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we authorize the city administrator to discuss real property. This motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of authorizing the city administrator to discuss real property say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously, and the city administrator is authorized to discuss real property. Item number 11, that was item 11. Board inquiries. Hearing none, we will move to adjournment. I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
I
It's
say.
been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. We are
All right, off we go. Like
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
I hope to see you on Wednesday evening. 4 o'clock or so?
Yes.
I'd like for that time frame.
Yes.